Ladies and gentlemen, Chaos Magick is not about casting spells, necessarily. It's about mastering your mind. It's about mind control, not over others, but of yourself. You will affect far more change in the world by trying to affect the change in yourself than the world itself. We're going to go over 7 principles, the fundamentals of Chaos Magick, so that we can have a good idea of where to broadcast from this. You will find lots of overlapping from all the other studies of the occult, esotericism, and religion, etc., because they all hint at a truth beyond the veil, so to speak. My name is Keith. If you're new, subscribe to the channel. You can subscribe. You know how it goes. Choppa choppa. Let's get into it. 1. Restlessness. Motionlessness. So hear me out. We've all seen the meditate for money, put on this frequency for money, put on this frequency for health. We have all these anecdotes of we're going to use our mind to manipulate reality through various means. But what they don't ever teach you, what I will be teaching you now, is how to actually train the mind to be of any use in the first place. Can you meditate for longer than 5 minutes at a time? Can you sit still for longer than 5 minutes at a time? Can you hold an image or sound in your mind for more than 5 minutes at a time? Do you have any control over your emotions? Do you have any control over the direction in which your emotions are going? We should know at this point that the emotion, the subconscious, is the fuel. The consciousness, the will, is the direction for that fuel. We can have the power of an elephant. We can be the rider on top of an elephant that guides the elephant to create things, or the elephant can run rampant and destroy everything in its wake. So step 1, using Chaos Magick, mind control. Step 1 is we need, well, all 7 steps. We need to focus on strengthening the mind. We start with meditation via motionlessness. So this is what we do. We lie down somewhere, and we don't move for at least 15 minutes. You can lie down, you can sit down, you wear what you want. I do not care, right? This is the beauty of Chaos Magick. I do not care about how you do it, what music you're listening to, the thoughts that you have. You have one goal. You sit down, and you do not move. And when you can do this for 15 minutes, you pass. You feel uncomfortable? Who cares? You got an itch? Who cares? You got 3 itches like I did this morning? I was like, wow, my elbow, my head, and my ankle all at the same time? Interesting. Did I move? No. This is a training of the mind and the most basic form, right? If you're trying to box Mike Tyson, are you going to jump in the ring and go toe-to-toe and get your face punched in? Absolutely not. No, you're going to condition. You're going to work out. You're going to eat healthy. You're going to go over your punching techniques. You're going to get punched in the face 20,000 times so you get used to being punched in the face, right? You have to go through all sorts of things before we step into the ring. First step is motionlessness. If you can't last 5 minutes, consider it a failure. Again, this isn't one of those things where it's like, oh, just do whatever you want. No, you can't do whatever you want. We need to set goals, and we need to set boundaries, and we need to be firm in those goals and boundaries that we step off. If you don't last 5 minutes, it's a fail, right? Get back on the horse and try again. The next is breathing. The next, we got to learn how to breathe, right? We do the same exact thing. Sit down in a comfortable position. Of course, once you've got at least 15 minutes of not moving around, now we breathe. We need to do this for 30 minutes. You breathe in. We'll do a little test take with me. Are you following? My name is Keith. Come on, we're going to take a deep breath together. You ready? You comfy? You loosened up? You loosened up, baby? Let's go. You ready? Now breathe in deep. 1, 2, 3. Again. That's it. You do that for 30 minutes, right? We're not trying to control the mind. We're not getting upset if our mind blares into 4 different directions. We're not upset if we have to adjust ourselves. We're not upset if something, whatever, right? We're not trying to manifest health. We're not trying to manifest a new girlfriend. We're not trying to manifest a better body. None of that. This is baby steps. You just breathe deep, and then you breathe out, and you do that for 30 minutes. This helps control the mind. Most importantly, now we are teaching you to regulate the emotions. Breathing is a flawless way of regulating the emotions. That's why we always, with children, my 5-year-old, hey, breathe. Can you breathe? Can you count backwards from 10? You got to distract him. Can you breathe deep and then answer me? He goes, Daddy, I'm just trying to. So it allows us space to reconsider our thoughts, to reconsider our emotions, and then to proceed. Breathe. It's the age-old time. Relax. Can you breathe, please? That's what we're doing now, baby. We're learning how to breathe. Again, we're not trying to manifest money, not trying to get your lottery tickets, not trying to get the new house. This is one of the things I really don't like about a lot of the things out there in this world is that, oh, you want the house? You just have to meditate on it. All right, no. Clench your pelvic floor muscles and bring the energy to your brain, and when you release, you got to make sure you're focusing on money or a frequency or a sound. Like that. Yes, you should be doing that. But dude, that's far in advance. People still can't even sit still for 30, 40, 50 minutes at a time. You're telling me you want to, in terms of law of correspondence, as above, so below, meaning, or the law that rhythm compensates. Do you think if you can't even sit still for half an hour, that you can somehow manifest a new house just by thinking about it? We need absolute power. When it comes to magic, excess is key. Remember that. When it comes to magic or anything, excess is key. So right now we want to be excessively good at the basics. So 1, motionlessness, which is just quieting the physical mind, quieting the physical body, just saying, I do not care what you want, I'm sitting still, right, like a child. 2, regulate the breathing so that we can regulate the emotions. Once you have that down for 30 seconds, we go on to the next one, which is, now is a crucial part. So now what we do is we go to the not thinking, which is the most difficult part. So the not thinking is exactly as it sounds. We try not to think. But the easiest way to go about this is to imagine the flow of thoughts like a flow of river. Most people are standing directly inside of the river. Thoughts are coming from every which direction. Some of these thoughts are from our lovers, from our children, from our parents, from our society, because you were watching the news, because you're horny, or might have to bleep that out, or whatever, right? So thoughts come and go. It's like a current in a river. Sometimes most people are standing inside of it, so they're just getting bombarded. They think they are their thoughts. They're just lost in it. What happens after a while is you realize, hey, I can observe my thoughts. So now instead of standing inside of the river, you're standing at the banks of the river. Kind of cool, right? So now you're standing at the banks of the river. But when we're standing next to the river's still real loud, especially if it's a really big river. The further away from the river you get, the less of the river you hear. Have you stopped the river? No, you have not. But you've stepped further and further away from it. This part I can't really describe unless you've been meditating very well for a very long time. Not even a very long time. Just as long as you've been meditating well consistently for a couple weeks, a couple days, you might find this point. Eventually, the space in between those thoughts gets further and further. The space enlarges. Now, instead of following a train of thought for 40 seconds before realizing what you're doing, you're only following that train of thought for 30 seconds before realizing what you're doing. Because you guys know how it goes. We have a bad thought. We think, bills, or I got to do this, or I should be doing this. I'm not productive. What is this? I'm uncomfortable. I have an itch. First of all, the uncomfort you should have dealt with beforehand. That's why we do the little things first. But once you have your breathing and your motionlessness regulated, now we regulate the thoughts. Now we go, I don't care if it's a good thought or a bad thought, especially the good thoughts. Because what happens is we start to feel good, and we're like, oh, it feels good. This is what I need. And then we go down that rabbit hole of feeling good, and that'll last about 30, 40 seconds. We're not here to feel good. We're not here to feel bad. We're not here to feel anything. At this point in the game, this meditation is specifically for not thinking. We continue breathing. We continue sitting still. When the thoughts arise, as they will, we observe them, we acknowledge them, and we let them go as quickly as you can. That's why we focused on the breathing before this, because when we bring our mind back to breath, it roots us in our immediate surroundings instead of in our head. And the more deeply we're rooted in our immediate awareness, in the now, the more deeply rooted we are in the now, the further we are from that river of thoughts in our head. It's kind of like the Alan Watts, where he says, the idea of godhood is not realizing, godhood is not about finding God and peeling the potatoes. It's simply in peeling the potatoes. Yada, you feel me? That's where we're at. That's not thinking. Do not allow yourself to entertain thought trains for longer than a few seconds at a time. And this is a skill. It's a lifelong skill, and it's dependent upon how caught up you are in your emotions, which is why we go over breathing. It's how caught up you are in your physical comfort, which is why we work on motionlessness first. It's rooted in everything. That's why baby steps. You got to crawl before you can walk. Now we're up to the next one. I got something for you. Next is magical trance. So all this is building up to get into a magical trance. The magical trance is somewhere in between consciousness and subconsciousness. It's that sweet spot. You're not asleep. Magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. The will can only become magically effective when the mind is focused and not interfering with the will. The mind must first discipline itself to focus its entire attention on some meaningless phenomena. If an attempt is made to focus on some form of desire, the effect is short-circuited by lust of result. Egotistical identification, fear of failure, and reciprocal desire not to achieve desire, arising from our dual nature, of course, destroys the result. Therefore, when selecting topics for concentration, choose subjects of no spiritual, egotistical, intellectual, emotional, or useful significance, meaningless things, in other words. Keith, what? Just like with the other parts of this lesson, we're training our mind to do a task. We're not trying to manifest. We're not trying to raise our frequency, though we will inherently be doing so just by default. But that's not our goal. Our goal right now is we're training the different faculties of the mind to be better. One faculty of the mind being emotional regulation. We're training that to be better. The will, we're training that to be better. Our focus, we're training that to be better, right? This next part is the same thing. Right now, we're trying to focus our concentration during a trance using breath control, using stillness, using not thinking. The more we master those things, the deeper we slip into a trance-like state. When we get into that trance-like state, we start to tap into the etheric, the chaos. This is the chaos part. We start to tap into the pure potential of reality. And as a result, we can finagle where existence is a little more malleable, a little more infinite. But again, we're not coming out of the gate swinging. We want to get a Ferrari by next week. You can have whatever you can imagine. You can't have whatever you can imagine because your imagination sucks most of the time. So I'm just going to say it. You can't have whatever you can imagine because most people have zero. If this is a real video game, people's imagination would be like 2 out of 100. Right now, we need, if you're trying to manifest a dragon, you're going to need at least imagination 98 plus. If you want to manifest a hamster, you're only going to need imagination 6 out of 100, right? So right now we're trying to chip away at our imagination skill. No one right now can manifest a dragon. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Very few people. Point being, I'm being cute, but the point stands. So this next part, the trance-like state, we need to focus on something that is mundane. We need to focus on something that has zero desire behind it because desire is a sticky thing. Even the desire not to desire something is a sticky thing, which we are inevitably going to do because we're human, right? That's another ego trap. Well, I'm going to desire to be desireless. Well, then that's another desire, which is why we do something that has no ego value, no emotional value, no spiritual value, no value, something truly meaningless, like a leaf or a blade of grass or your favorite star, and you're just going to tap it. You're just going to use your psyche to tap into that shit. Just, you know what I mean? So that if it doesn't happen, oh, I'm not meditating right, or oh, I'm not feeling, oh, did I do something wrong? Oh, yeah, I'm caught up in my head. Now the thoughts, now the emotions are kicked into gear. Now the body's restless. It's a whole cascade of catastrophic cacophonies correspond to the coils of the concerned mind. Well, I tried to keep that one going. We went pretty far too. Point being, now, when selecting topics for concentration, choose subjects of no spiritual, egotistical, intellectual, emotional, or useful significance. We focus on meaningless things in this trance-like state. Now we get to the next part. When we master this trance state, we can extract information from quote-unquote inanimate things. I don't think there's such thing as inanimate. I think there are degrees of animation, and some have extraordinarily low degrees of animation, and some have a very high degrees of animation. So this part, we take all of our teachings thus far, tapping into the trance state, our breath and emotional regulation, our regulation of thoughts, our new relationship to the body and to stillness now becomes a focus on an object. It is said that you could focus on a star and receive information from that star, a leaf. Think of the natives who said, "Oh, how did I learn how to concoct this entheogenic brew that blasts us off into outer space? The plants told me. I heard it in a dream, or I learned it from the trees. If the trees talk to you." We have all these shamanistic, and the reason is because these people are super tapped into Earth. They have no gadgets, they have no digital life, no street lights. They see the Milky Way galaxy every night of their lives, which is an experience worth more, honestly, probably than every ounce of gold on the planet, really. Point being, with this concentration, we can focus on a star or a tree or an object or a bug or an animal, preferably something that you can stare at for hours at a time, because remember, excess is everything in magic. Excess is everything. So you focus on your star or whatever, and you have to have an unwavering gaze for hours. Again, the practitioner of trance-like states, connection with God, Jesus tries to portray. Think about what Jesus did. He fasted in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, which is, and we'll get on to occult knowledge behind what Jesus did in the desert by not eating and not drinking water, and what he was able to see and how he was able to connect with God at that point. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. You can subscribe if you want to stay up to date with the cool Chaos Magick stuff. Do you guys like that? That was a nice segue. Anywho, that's object concentration. Next is sound concentration and image concentration. I'll talk about them both at the same time because it's sort of the same thing. Our ability to enunciate clearly and effectively and repetitively in the mind is sound concentration. The ability to do that and hold it in the mind is a superpower. This is where your incantations, your mantras, your prayers. We have the Lord's Prayer in Christianity. We have the Kukulkan's prayer. Everyone's got a prayer, right? The power of the prayer is the power of repetition of sound vibrations, but more importantly, being able to hold those in your mind repetitively and clearly so that they start appearing in dreams, so that we start humming them and singing them repetitively without even thinking about it, right? This is when this happens, that sound has become impregnated into the subconscious mind, which is the ultimate goal of Chaos Magick, is to get information, to get frequencies into the subconscious mind, because once something is rooted in the subconscious mind, it emanates 24/7. That's the power of the feminine. The power of the feminine is its passive quality, like a Wi-Fi router. Wi-Fi routers project information passively, meaning 24/7. Doesn't matter whether your computer's on or off, connected or not. As long as it's plugged in, baby, that signal is being broadcasted. So when we plug that sound into our psyche deep enough, it becomes part of our vibration. And this is really the goal of Chaos Magick, if I may digress a little bit. The goal is not to change the world. It's not to have happy thoughts. It's not to try to manifest things or evoke things or be more magical. It's about straight up changing who we are, our persona, our characteristics, and maybe not so much as changing who we are, because that might be impossible, but deciding which mask we choose of our own volition, meaning we overcome our emotions, we overcome our anger, we overcome our melancholy and our sadness. We can even overcome our excitement and our joy and our happiness. We have ultimate control over all. We direct our efforts at the control of emotion. The nature of emotion is that it's very hard to control, which is why they're so powerful. Because you can't have one without the other. Balance, baby. Shout out Kybalion. Point being, anyway, I digress. We'll get into the next one. The next one is, what was that last one? That last one was sound. Now is picture. So now we do the same thing with sound, but imagine pictures, shapes, symbols. This is where sigils come into mind. When you draw a sigil is a visual representation of a frequency that you're trying to set. Sigils, aka symbols, aka visual representations of information, are everywhere. McDonald's is a sigil. The yellow M on a red background is imbued with all that is McDonald's, because when you see that, you can imagine everything. You can smell it, you can taste it, you can feel the texture. You might even start craving it after a while because you've been programmed by that symbol to have a certain reaction whenever you see it. Bada boom, you know what I mean? So this is the power of the sigil. Because it's the visual idea gets burned into the subconscious mind so deep that, again, we emanate that frequency 24/7. Except being bombarded by other sigils from the external world, we create our own sigils so that we can bombard our own subconscious, our own psyche with the thing that we want. And then some more advanced things are getting other people's intentions plugged into your sigil, which is something like McDonald's or Apple. You see the apple with it bitten out. That is an influence on you. That's an influence on the external world at that point. That's a hyper sigil. That's some super gangster occult stuff. Anyway, let's get to the next point. I don't know how much battery this video might end and start back up again, but we're going to keep going. The next and possibly most important part of this is metamorphosis. I touched on this a few moments ago when I said the idea of all these practices isn't to I'm not teaching you how to manifest a car. I'm not teaching you how to be a better lover, how to be a more understanding partner, how to regulate your emotions, how to regulate your anger so it doesn't destroy your family, it doesn't destroy you, how to regulate your guilt so your guilt doesn't destroy your relationship. I'm not trying to fix external things. I'm literally showing you guys how to reorient who you are, redefine the relationship with who you are and your thoughts and your programmings, because those are the things that are going to enact change in the external world. When you're sailing a ship, if you're sailing a ship from here 10 feet away, you can change the course by 6 degrees. You can change the course by 20 degrees and you're still going to hit the object. But if that course is over 3,000 miles, that's the difference between sailing from Britain to Florida and hitting Florida or hitting, Brazil, right? So tiny changes have dramatic effects in the long term. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to get those tiny changes. We're trying to reorient ourselves with our emotions. We're trying to regulate our emotions. We're trying to clear our thoughts. We're trying to distinguish our consciousness from our thoughts because they're not the same thing. And then eventually we'll find out, those thoughts aren't even coming from me. Those thoughts are coming from my partner. Sort of the same way you and your lover can sing the same song at the same exact time, or when you're best friends, or because you guys are tuned into each other, right? Thoughts are fluid, man. They're tricky things. Anywho, the last part is metamorphosis, which is what we're aiming to do. We're aiming to change ourselves on an internal level so that we can change our external realities. I'm going to read something to you guys. The transmutation of the mind to magical consciousness has often been called the great work. It has far-reaching purpose, leading eventually to the discovery of true will. Even a slight ability to change oneself is more valuable than the power over the external universe. Metamorphosis is an exercise in willed restructuring of the mind. All attempts to reorganize the mind involve a duality between conditions as they are and the preferred condition. Thus, it is impossible to cultivate any true value like spontaneity, joy, pious pride, grace, omnipotence, without involving oneself in more conventionality, sorrow, guilt, sin, and impotence in the process. Because we can't separate where we are now from where we want to be. Any state of mind might arbitrarily be chosen as an objective for transmutation, but there is a specific virtue to one's given. The first is an antidote to imbalance and possible madness of the magical trance, because that is a real thing. The second is a specific against obsession with the magical practices. And there's a third section, which is just straight up changing small everyday habits and letting go of things. So the first, laughter. The second, non-attachment, non-disinterest. These are ways of approaching the magical trance state. These are ways of approaching the metamorphosis in which we wish to undergo, because some people can go actually crazy from doing things like these. Laughter is a way of, we'll read our notes. Attaining these states of mind is accomplished by a process of ongoing meditation. One tries to enter into the spirit of the condition whenever possible and to think about the desired result at other times. By this method, a strong new mental habit can be established. Consider laughter. It is the highest emotion, for it can contain any of the others from ecstasy to grief. It has no opposite. Crying is merely an underdeveloped form of it, which cleanses the eyes and summons assistance to infants. Laughter is the only tenable attitude in a universe which is a joke played upon itself. The trick is to see that joke played out even in neutral and ghastly events which surround one. It is not for us to question the universe's apparent lack of taste. Seek the emotion of laughter at what delights and amuses. Seek it in whatever it is neutral or meaningless. Seek it even in what is horrific and revolting. Though it may be forced at first, one can learn to smile inwardly at all things. So that's laughter. The tool of laughter in metamorphosis and transformation of the internal psyche. Non-attachment and non-disinterest best describes the magical condition of acting without lust or result. This is one of the most powerful things we can do. Acting with lust is sticky. So is the result. Anywho, back to notes. It is very difficult for humans to decide on something and then do it purely for its own sake. Yet it is precisely this ability which required to execute magical acts. Only single-pointed awareness will do. Attachment is to be understood both in the positive and negative sense, for aversion is its other face. Attachment to any attribute of oneself, one's personality, one's ambitions, one's relationships, or even sensory experiences, or equally aversion to any of these, will prove limiting. What we're learning is that we can't become overly attached to the thing that we're trying to do. We also can't become attached to our personality, our emotions, or anything that make us us, because a lot of the times what make us us is exactly what's keeping us from getting what we want. And I don't mean that in a woo way. Sometimes our inability to control our melancholy, or I should say, our over-identifying with our melancholy, or our anger, or our excitement, or our lust, or our greed. A lot of times, that's not who we are, but states of awareness that we choose to exist in. And the more we can let go of attaching ourselves to the old ego, the more we relinquish what in turn that ego was attached to. It allows us to be completely objective to things, like how we practiced on becoming free of that river of thought. We're no longer in the river of thought. We are on its bank, or even further. But to pretend like we have no interest in a thing is also equally as fatal. We can't pretend we just don't want something. It's counterintuitive. Instead, what we're learning how to do is to tread lightly. We're learning how to tread lightly on the things in our world. How to touch lightly the things in our world. How to be both of the world and in the world. Remember, it's that in-between spot. There's always an in-between balance spot that we gotta hit in order to be successful. I was a collegiate athlete on scholarship. I was a phenomenal baseball player. I still hold records in California for a hit streak in high school as a sophomore in high school. When you're hitting, when you're up to bat, the pitcher's throwing the ball, you're in the batter's box, and you gotta hit the ball. My friend used to always tell me, my friend Jeff, it was a ritual. He would come up to me and he'd say, "Hey Keith, what are you thinking about?" And my response would always be, "Nothing." That whole season, I got to hit every game. I was batting over 500 as a sophomore throughout playoffs, which is unheard of. And there was this sweet spot between the skills I had accumulated during practice, my ability to recognize pitches, my strength, my timing, my reaction, my fixing tweaks in my swing that was making certain pitches difficult for me to hit or difficult to approach, or shitty mind states that left me behind before I even got in. All the practice that I worked off of the field, right? That's the masculine. That's the will. That's the determination. That's the boundary setting. That's the hardcore focus. But when I got into the box, when it was time to perform, I let all that shit go. And my thoughts were empty. I had no thoughts. My mind was blank. That was the sweet spot. That was the balance. That's what we're going for when we're trying to get this metamorphosis. Is we don't want to lust after things. We don't want to become overly attached to the outcome of things, because it's the over-attachment to these things brings along with it all the negative aspects. But we don't want to forget about it altogether. Equally as fatal, we want to touch lightly the things in the world that we love. We want to get a feel for them, get an essence for them. We are of the world and we're in the world, and we're neither. It's a very finicky sweet spot. But if you guys are artists or builders or anything, all humans are capable of this flow state. Because everything can be considered a meditation. You can go for walks. You can be an athlete who weightlifts, or an athlete who runs or swims, or you can be an artist who paints, or you can be a musician, or you can be lost in the moment. I was playing Blues Clues with my son, and I was lost in the moment of Blues Clues. Nothing existed except us trying to find Blues' next clue. And it was wonderful. These states exist everywhere. And we get to them with laughter and end with subtly touching the things in the world. I hope this wasn't too long. I had my notes and I had some things. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. Thank you so much. Join if you guys have the means and motivation. Join the Patreon. The link should be in the description. Thank you guys so much. My name is Keith. Your Man of Letters, here to hopefully bring you guys some knowledge, information, and a bit of entertainment. Check out the channel. We have audiobooks. We go into Hermetics and alchemy and emerald tablets, and the Colburn Bible is pretty gangster. We are just proper men of letters and women of letters here at this channel. So if you like what you see and you want more long-form content and you're stoked that you're finally talking to someone that's not AI generated, me too. It's funny because I actually started making YouTube videos again because I was tired of the AI-generated everything. I thought, these are my favorite topics, and I can't watch something that doesn't have that ridiculous AI voice that sounds like a movie from the 2000 teens or with a clearly AI script and vision. I like AI a lot, don't get me wrong, but I also like having some... Anywho, thank you guys. Thank you for being here. If you like this video... Oh, wait. Call to action. Everyone, leave me something, if you're still here this far, leave me something in the comment section that, let me know how you feel, I guess. Let me know how you feel. I'm going to ask, speaking of AI, what's a good call to action for a video like this? We'll see. If you're ready to take control of your mind and start practicing these techniques, hit that button, oh my God, and show your support, yada, yada, yada. So drop a comment. No, I'm trying to, in a call to action, I want them to leave something in the comment section so that they can reflect on what they just learned. Sometimes it's... AI is really good for stuff like this. I'm not anti-technology. Yes, I love technology. Always and forever. Now that you've explored these powerful concepts of mind control through Chaos Magick, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share which technique you're most excited to try first, or if you've already practiced one of these methods, tell me about your experience. How did it feel to step into a new state of consciousness? Let's reflect on this journey together and support each other in the process of transformation. That's all, State Stand. Are you in good hands?